I think over the last few years I've been sort of thinking about this, and I do come to the same conclusions I've come to quite a long time ago, which really it's about creating innovation for social benefit. So something that is a genuine social, environmental or economic benefit over an alternative product usually. Because often people get confused with what research and innovation is. So there is research which can result in an innovation or may not result in an innovation. So I'm focusing more on the innovation side. You have research, you have an invention, and an innovation is a superior product or superior process that's come through this pathway often. And I think therefore of the innovations themselves, and public dialogues often say that the public are more concerned about the application of research than the research itself. So focusing on a social benefit, involving society, I think obviously people have got the right to sit at home and watch telly. They don't want to be involved in every piece of research that the world produces, but actually reflecting the values of society, involving different groups who've got a perspective to offer, and also understanding the potential directions of research and innovation that society seeks to take it is important. And particularly prioritising social, ethical, environmental, safety issues alongside the economic. I think a lot of where responsible research and innovation came from was a fear that economics drove innovation at the expense of society, health and safety, other areas. So this idea of responsible innovation, where these issues are considered concurrently and balanced and thought of at the same time and acted on at the same time, I think is important, but also it's incredibly difficult to do. I think also an important area where the oversight of the governance of research and innovation can potentially anticipate better the problems that may arise, and may be able to focus, coordinate, govern, regulate innovation in a more constructive way. And that's not just looking at it in terms of getting rid of any potential risks. It's actually about governing opportunity and allowing opportunity as well, and that often gets forgotten in the research and in the responsibility aspect. We're also worried about people being responsible and the risks, that we forget that the opportunity is still important as well. And I think finally where transparency is key. Now transparency, in a way, when we did an initial project in responsible innovation, which was the responsible nanocode for nanotechnologies, we weren't going to have transparency as a key principle, because we felt really it's an underpinning, it's part of the how, but actually we felt it was so important in terms of demonstrating responsibility that it should be quite up there. So benefit, prioritising social and ethical impacts, oversight and transparency, I think are the key things for us on responsible innovation. Well, the theory is we will all benefit. So we, society, will get better products that really respond to our values, to our needs and wants, and businesses will have a clearer pathway to develop innovations. They won't be being pounced on by, businesses will have themselves a clearer pathway to develop their innovations, because there won't be so many surprises. There won't be misunderstandings or clashes of values or clashes of understanding about the innovation. However, that said, I think one of the features of the area of innovation is that there will always be a value clash. Somebody will always not want what you think is the solution. So don't expect responsible research and innovation to give this smooth pathway to innovation. One of the features of innovation is that it is complicated. People will disagree, people will potentially really significantly, violently disagree. And one of the ways that this responsible research and innovation sort of theme or process will help is to help those organisations do their due diligence in advance and at least have a clear sort of validated understanding of why they've chosen this innovation, what they've done to ensure that it's safe and it's responsible, it's ethical, it's environmental, and also focusing on the benefits, so that when that sort of that clash, that disagreement comes about, they can see why they're doing it and they can explain clearly why they're doing it, and they feel sort of strongly that that there is a genuine responsible rationale for their different approach. Because that's part of the problem at the moment. A lot of people disagreeing. How does an organisation sort of justify its approach without a clear understanding of society's expectations and some of these other things we talked earlier about? One of the criticisms I have of this whole responsible research and innovation agenda, it's all focused on solutions to global energy problems and all of this type of thing. But also innovations are packaging or new shelving projects or, computers. So we're not all going to change the world's sort of intransigent problems through innovation. People are allowed to innovate in quite prosaic, ordinary ways. So where I hope in the area particularly of things like consumer products, you might find that under where responsible research and innovation is embedded, you will get perhaps products with a very clear and dynamic social environmental benefit rather than just a commercial benefit. So they might not be better washing powders or different washing powders, but the washing powders themselves might have a lot more environmental benefits or social benefits, or as we hear about things like miniature sachets of washing powders for the developing world or something like that. People will be thinking more of the social benefit and transformation in terms of social environmental issues with their own products. But then there is also this area of responsible innovation from the point of view of government funding and these very big infrastructure projects, like how are we going to boost the percentage of renewables. So in that area, I think we could see different directions and quite a more unusual and sort of transformational approaches, we hope. But it's a huge spectrum from a little washing powder to renewable energies for all sort of thing. For me, the biggest potential for responsible research and innovation is in everybody thinking differently. So actually, yes, of course we want energy for the future and climate change to be, but in fact, if everybody played their part, if every innovator, every company, every researcher, government departments, if everybody started to think differently and started to think more about these societal challenges, the social benefit, the environmental benefit, that will be a dramatic change. Rather than waiting for some great big policy movement that will suddenly transform everything, I don't think that's the way it happens. In fact, there's a great quote from Stephen B. Johnson, because we have this vision that innovation happens by some lone genius. And that's not true. He says that innovation is like a floodplain. All of the tributaries and the interactions and the things going on in society all pull together and bring the lone genius to the top to allow them to innovate. So in fact, it's all going on, and innovation really is a sort of an amalgamation of all sorts of different societal challenges, technological innovations, different mindsets, value sets, and all of that. It's not this sort of one person having a great inspiration in some room somewhere. Yes, the negative consequences is quite interesting. I push quite hard for the sort of responsible research and innovation sort of groups and teams and researchers to look at that, because that is what responsible research and innovation is about, so we ought to be doing it for ourselves. So, I mean, the things that I can anticipate is that it's considered a risk-based initiative, and therefore we fail to grasp the opportunities. Now, on the other hand, particularly in technology innovation, this could be construed as me thinking technology can solve everything, and therefore any technology at any price, not any price, but any technology done responsibly is okay. So I don't mean that either, but I think we have to be careful about where our sort of language, our pushing, our processes actually take us. Because as we found out from innovation itself, you push one way and something else pops out the other way. So I think also we as a sort of genre of researchers and of innovators need to be constantly evaluating what we're doing and what the impact of what we're doing, and thinking through the impact of what we're doing. Where at the moment I think it's all a little bit, oh, it's such a good thing, we must do it. And we ought to be a little bit more rigorous in our own approach to think through the impacts, the negative impacts as well as the positive impacts. We have a word that we use called cogitation, which is equally arcane to reflexivity. But it's this idea that you, particularly on the engagement with society side, you listen, you perhaps communicate, you co-create, but the whole point of the whole exercise is to give you more evidence, more richness of understanding, to think through how to innovate. And we should be, this is an innovation in itself, responsible innovation. So we should be cogitating, and we use the word cogitate because it's got that feeling of your cogs in your brain working hard. You know, it really is quite hard to know what to do when you've got this sort of input. And so I think that it's important that we all think this through, from, you know, the highest sort of in the land in terms of you know, prime ministers and those in charge, to the sort of, you know, little R&D person, or like little researcher like me, or, you know, in our own little way. One of the aspects of the governance of innovation, and our question, some of the questions here, it's not the governance of responsible research and innovation, because I think governance and responsible are the same word in here in a way. It's the governance of innovation. And one of the aspects of responsibility in this area is thinking in advance about problems and opportunities. And this is a big challenge for governance, because particularly regulation, if you're talking about governance, it can only regulate something that it knows what it is. So it can only regulate a product or an area which it's clear about what it is. And with innovation, particularly very fast-moving innovation, some of the ICT areas are very fast-moving, and governance therefore lags behind. And this is where responsible research and innovation in a way comes in, to start to cluster and clarify expectations in this very early phase, so that your products aren't out there before governance can catch up. So I think the anticipation is probably the biggest governance challenge. But also, as we found with nanotechnology, for example, governance mechanisms are often based on old products, and they're not really fit for the purpose. And so we're trying to squash in old style regulations into new style innovations, and they don't really work. But any good governance and any good regulation takes years. It takes 10 years to get good quality regulation. And so you don't want knee-jerk regulation either. We've got to regulate this thing instantly, because you end up with bad governance. So this whole process of the development of governance is very difficult and complex, and society can naturally think that, my goodness, these innovations are happening, the governments can't catch up, and it's all unregulated. Oh my God, you know. So that's true. That is also potentially true. So this is the big challenge of governance, which is to do the right governance at the right time for the right product, but in a way trying to think through mechanisms that can act in advance, and that's not at all easy.